This is going viral. But you know what should go viral? The fact that
everybody. Welcome to our first music industry job series of the semester. We usually do these online, so we're trying it out in person today, so thanks for coming on out. We also have this streaming on YouTube, which is what our crew in the back is doing there, so if you'd like to check it out after, you're more than welcome to do that as well. What we have today is I'm going to introduce a few of our special guests we have. We'll talk about what they do in the music industry, and then at the end, we will have time to go over a few questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists for the night.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, hey. Hello.
All right, so if we just want to go down the line and let us know what you all do.
Yes, hello everybody. I am Cade. I run a local Twin City-based arts and entertainment organization called Flavor World. So we do a lot of stuff in the arts and entertainment space. We have a record label, host events, got a magazine, make clothing. The list goes on. But yeah, all things arts and entertainment is what I do for a living.
I'm Dawn Novak, and I am the marketing and promotions, social media and web manager at the Electric Fetus Record Store. If you're familiar with the record store or record stores in general, if you've ever met maybe your favorite artist over there, I probably had something to do with that behind the scenes. So I've been there for over 30 years, and I'm still learning new stuff every day.
I'm Kara. Y'all talked so quick. I'm the senior manager of marketing and communications at Target Center. So where the Timberwolves and the Lynx play, maybe you saw your favorite artist there. So I work primarily with show promoters and basically try to get butts and seats. So if you've bought a ticket to go to a show there, thank you. And what else? Social media, Target Center, websites, any kind of press releases that go out to the media as a show announces, sending out pre-sale information for a show, updating anything on the website. I also work with a lot of the local media, so the Star Tribune or Pioneer Press, if they come any shows that are reviewed on any of those platforms, I help coordinate their seats and their pass to have their laptop. Anybody who wants to photograph the show, I coordinate that day of show. So that's a small bit of what I do.
All right, and we also have wondering, how did you get into the industry? Like, what was your interest at first that made you decide to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, so I got into it, well, it started with clothing. So I was actually going to the U of M as a student here, and I just had some funny drawings that I wanted to put on a shirt, and I learned how to screen print and decided, well, I should make a brand out of this. So I started that with kind of always having the intention of expanding beyond just clothing. I felt like that was a little too narrow for what I dreamed of doing. And then the first kind of area we branched into was the music scene, partly because Twin Cities has a really nice grassroots scene. There's a lot of house venues, a lot of bands, a lot of great people like these two helping make things happen. So it was very easy. Well, I guess I wouldn't say very easy, but it seemed like a straightforward path for us to enter that and start to get to know bands, and from there start to host events, start to offer more and more services, eventually to where we are today, which I'm sure we'll get more into. But yeah, really I got into it kind of from the bottom up, just meeting a couple bands and deciding to host a show, and just riding that wave for a few years.
So I grew up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and I've always loved music. I knew I wanted to go to Madison, so I went to UW-Madison. And I think that if I knew that the job I have that I've had for so long existed, I would have tried too hard to get it, if that makes sense. I really had no idea that there would be this job available. So when I was going to Madison, I just loved to go to concerts, house shows, venues, that kind of thing. And when it was time to get an internship, I was studying in the School of Journalism with an advertising focus, because I like to write copy, horrible at drawing, knew that wasn't going to be my path. So I just thought, okay, what should I do for an internship? So I had 2 internships simultaneously. One was with the University of Wisconsin School of Business, where I learned to write press releases. And then I also was working for a commercial radio station down there. So it wasn't a college station, it was a commercial station. So I learned a lot about all these different areas. Basically, they told me when I started to intern, what do you want to learn? And I said, I want to learn everything but sales. I have no interest in sales. So I got to write copy and produce and be an on-air DJ and do promotions and go out in the field and just, whatever they needed me to do. And after that semester, I got hired for my senior year. So I think back then it was about $4 an hour that I was making part-time at the radio station. And that just fueled my love of music. And I knew pretty quickly that if something wasn't going to materialize in Madison, meaning staying at that station, that I wanted to move to Minneapolis, because I knew that the music scene up here was just awesome. So that's kind of what took me up here. Do you want me to go into how I got my job? Okay.
Yes, Dawn, keep going.
So back then, I got a job first at an optical company because I wanted to get into advertising. So I did customer service for them and then became their advertising coordinator, and actually started working at Electric Fetus in 1992. And in 1992, of course, no internet, but all the jobs were in the newspaper. So I literally saw the job in the newspaper and started to shake because it sounded so great. And I didn't know anybody. I just sent in my resume, had an interview, was offered the job. And when I went to the first event that we had, first music event, and I was in a room with all these music industry people, and I asked my boss, he kept saying, oh, that person applied for your job, that person applied for your job. And I felt really intimidated because I didn't have all this experience that it looked like a lot of those people had. And he told me something really interesting that always stuck with me. He said, we didn't hire you for your music experience. We hired you for your advertising experience because you were going to be our advertising coordinator. So I just took that and ran with it, and they haven't been able to get rid of me.
I didn't know I really wanted to be in music. I actually started in country clubs. Not glamorous, not very fun. So I graduated from Iowa State University in 2021 with a degree in event management. I actually went into school as an open major. I didn't really know if I wanted to do school. I didn't know anything in high school that I wanted to bring into college that I really loved, which I feel like a lot of people did, so I felt a little out of place there. But eventually I picked up event management, graduated in 21. While I was in school, again, started in country clubs. So I had a part-time country club gig in high school. So I was like, well, I guess that'll just be my first internship. That's like an easy way to get into the events industry. So I had a country club internship for a summer. And I would say at the end of it, it was a great experience. But I was like, okay, so I won't be doing that again. I'm good on country clubs, but I liked the events. I like, seeing people excited. That was probably the first time where I was like, oh, this is cool to be a part of something that gives people joy. I mean, I love music personally, so after another year, I got an internship at Wells Fargo Arena, which is one of the biggest music venues in Des Moines, in Iowa, and I was there in 2020, so I was there for about 3 months as their marketing intern, and I was like, well, such a bummer because that was the best job I had ever had, and I was like, of course. Bad timing. So I just knew that after I graduated, I was like, well, I have to work in this industry. I have to work in music, in entertainment, in concerts, whatever it is, I'm gonna get a job in that industry. So after I graduated in 21, I had 2 options. It was still pretty quick after COVID, so it was I could move to Idaho or I could move to North Dakota. So a little bit far from home, a little bit not that exciting in a way, so I picked North Dakota. My family's from Iowa. I tried to keep it a little bit close. And I actually worked at a place called a Lyra Center, an arena and conference center. So I started there as an event manager, which is a little bit more logistics planning. And then after 10 months, I didn't make it a year, I was like, I'm gonna get a different job. It was great. It was just the company culture was a little bit weird, and I worked a lot. I had maybe one day off a week, and it was Monday. So pivoted, kind of went out on a whim and took an executive assistant job at Target Center, which is where I am now. And I just thought, I just need to get into a bigger market. You know, the music scene's great here, like everybody's mentioned, and it was a risk. And I don't think I would have had the job I have now if I didn't take the executive assistant job. I will say I was an executive assistant for 5 months, and I didn't do much, to be honest, which was a little bit like, whoa, this is refreshing / I really need to get a different job. So actually my first day at Target Center was the current, at that time, marketing manager's last day. So in that 5 months, there was nobody doing marketing other than my boss currently. So they needed a marketing person. So after 5 months, I just asked my boss, the general manager at the time, I said, I need a different job. Can you lower this senior manager position to a manager position? I want to be a marketing manager. I want to keep working at Target Center. I want to keep living in Minneapolis. So I just asked, and they did. They lowered it. I applied. I interviewed. Got the job, luckily. So in August of 22, I became the marketing manager, and then I've been there ever since. I even asked, after I think a year and a half, I asked to be promoted. I talked to the human resources people about all the work I had done. I had a teammate at the time who quit in January. So after being in the position for like 2 or 3 months, it was pretty much just me. So I was thrown in a little bit doing the social and the digital part of marketing. And at that time, you know, just going through, okay, what does the senior position entail? So got that from the HR, said that I was doing all of it basically, and ended up getting promoted. So I think a big thing in the music industry is absorbing everything you can, and again, asking questions and just wanting to be a part of everything, but also asking for things when you deserve them. I think that's a big thing.
You can never be afraid to advocate for yourself. When I interviewed for my job at the record store, they wanted to hire me at the same salary I was making. And of course, I was 24 and had really no experience in speaking out for myself too much. And you know, fortunately, my mom said, "No, you don't do that. You're worth at least this amount more." And so it is interesting to learn that when you're young. It's one of the hardest things to do, is to speak up for yourself, because you don't want to come across as too cocky or full of yourself, because you really don't have any reason to be full of yourself at that age. You really don't at any age. So I just can't stress enough what you said about taking the reins, and that's impressive, and asking for that, because that's something I did not know at that young of an age. But and to my story, they said, "All right, well, we think you've got something to bring to this company, and we're going to do it." And I thought, I guess I should have asked for more.
I think it's helpful too when you have such a good company culture. I have such a great boss, so as soon as I was like, this is the job description of a senior, I think we could both agree that I'm doing it. She was like, absolutely. I'll see what I can do. At first she was like, I'll promote you in a year. And I was like, that's tough. I was hoping not in a year. I was hoping sooner. I didn't say that, but of course I had some patience. It ended up being that somebody left Target Center, so they had money in the budget, but it ended up working out, and I had people that advocated for me. But yeah, I do think it can be hard to speak up, especially I think as a woman in the industry. So just having the backup too, to be like, this is on paper exactly what I'm doing, and I deserve that. I think that goes a long way.
All right. Thank you guys so much for that. Also, based on all of your experience, and I feel like you all have very different ones, so I'm really interested in this question. Do you all have any advice for when you started out in the music industry, or like in your career, of what you wish the younger you would have had?
Well, I mean, that's great advice that you both just reiterated. It was just asking. I mean, it's crazy, like, what blessings you can come upon just by putting yourself out there and just asking for it. And I feel like my story is kind of a testament to that as well, because I kind of made my own job in the industry in a way. I mean, I've only been self-employed in the music industry, and so a lot of that has been just asking venues like, hey, can we do a show there? Or asking bands that I think are kind of out of my league, like, hey, want to work together? It's wild. A lot of people be interested, and as long as you're putting good energy out there, I think they'll pick up on that. So that comes to mind right away, but I'm going to try and think of something else because that's what you guys said.
No, but to what you said, one of the things I always think to this day is the answer is always no if you don't ask. We've had some huge musicians, huge stars at the store that people look and say, how did you get that person? Well, I just asked. You know, it's not everybody, obviously, but I mean, there have been events. The biggest event we ever had, which was actually too many people, was just from an email that I went on the band's website and emailed, and you figure it's going to go out there and nobody's going to read it. Well, I got the email back saying, what did you have in mind? And we had 800 people in our store for They Might Be Giants on Record Store Day, and everybody was ready to kill me because it was unsafe. But it's just one of those things, just, you know, don't be afraid to ask. That's exactly what you said.
You got OSHA knocking at the door, Dawn. Yeah.
Statute of limitations.
Exactly. I mean, I do agree with both of them. I think an email goes a long way. I think a phone call goes a long way these days. I would say a big piece of advice is that your career doesn't start after college. I think it starts as soon as you want it to. I think it's big to be involved in things in college. I mean, it's one thing to come to something like this, to show that you're interested. You know, there's 3 people in the industry right here that you can talk to in such an intimate space. But just getting involved in things that you can, as many things as you can in college. So your clubs, your Greek life, your any leadership opportunities, you know, any other activities that are extracurricular, that shows a lot of initiative. Because I do think a lot of people, not that a lot of people are lazy, but I just think it's so great to get involved in as many things as you can while you have the time. And I think that shows a lot in your post-college career to start. I learned a lot of things when I was in college that really helped me, set me up for success post-college. So having that horrible country club internship that I won't ever work in that again, having that music internship that was only 3 months that showed me, oh, I have to work in this industry and I'm not going to leave it, and I know that. I think that goes a long way. And even a bad experience is going to be a learning experience. I'm sure people have said that, but it goes a long way. And I do think, like, another small piece of advice is that it's such a big industry, the music industry, but it's so small. I feel like a lot of people say that in Minneapolis especially, but across the Midwest, across the nation, like Dawn and I work together pretty frequently on promotions and giving away tickets and records on Electric Fetus's social media. But I work with a lot of other venue marketers, and I know, you know, people are changing jobs all the time, so being able to say, oh, well, I know Ashley at First Avenue who does the marketing, and she's really great if she's ever trying to get a new job, or Dawn had this amazing idea to promote Megan Thee Stallion in this way, and, you know, it's such a smaller industry than you realize, so just being respectful and kind and all of those good things goes a really long way.
One of the things I would add for advice that makes me think of what you're talking about with going through these experiences where you don't necessarily want to do that job, but it teaches you that, okay, I want to steer, and it's going to steer you into another direction. You might not find your right path for 5 or 6 tries, so you just got to stay with it. But one of the things that I wish I would have known, wasn't detrimental because that's kind of not who I am, but was especially when you're younger, try and stay out of the drama. You know, it could be a personal relationship, a relationship with, you know, if you're working with a band, try and stay away from the drama, because especially in an industry like this, it comes back around and it is a small world. So sometimes, you know, you can't avoid the drama, and you do have to live through it and just try and be true to yourself and not get caught up in it, because a lot of times, and with any industry, you may run into that person again. And it's better if you've taken a high road and stayed away from all of it, so.
Yeah, one more thing I thought of is kind of going off what you said is just showing up to shows, really. Like, if you want to get in the music industry, it's a great place to start when you don't have any connections or way in other than that. There's a lot of people that I've just seen at hundreds of local shows that at this point I've seen them around so much that I feel like they could get a job at a lot of places. Just, they've talked to so many bands, so many venue owners. That just really showing up and meeting people and being like an active member of the community is just going to be a great way to start, and also kind of have these experiences, both positive and negative, that kind of leads you to understanding what it is you really want to do within the industry.
I will say too, there's a lot of avenues into the music industry. So it doesn't have to be something as dramatic as an internship. It can be you work concessions or you work as a stagehand. My girlfriend that I've been with for 3 years, she was a stagehand for like 14 years, and now she's a production manager, regional production manager for Live Nation, working all these really big shows. She's at Billie Eilish tonight. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get into the industry. It doesn't have to be like, I applied for a full-time job and I didn't get it. You know, guest services, ushers, what are there? Being a runner, which is like working for a promoter and basically being an errand runner for the whole show day for the tour. There's just a bunch of different part-time gigs that you can always start doing just to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, there's a lot of venues around here. One resource I want to plug quick, I shared with them earlier, it's on Instagram at Undercurrent MPLS. Every day they post the flyer of every show happening locally that they know, and it's always surprises me. Or just even tonight, Sunday night, there's like 7 or 8 shows going on in the Twin Cities, many of which have just local bands, locally organized. So there's always a lot going on in the city here. So just showing up again makes a big impact.
People are always hiring. Like, I feel like nobody's ever like, no, we're way too staffed, especially these days. And not to beat a dead horse, but there's a lot of full-timers at Target Center that started as guest services or security. So, and they've been at Target Center for a while.
And I feel like, especially in Minneapolis where we have such a rich local music scene as well. So just getting out there and you start to see like the same people, and it is quite a good experience to have just to get out there. And then another question I have before we get to the Q&A section is, what is both the most challenging part of your job and the most rewarding part? So it's kind of a 2-part question.
Yeah, for me personally, the most challenging part is easy, no money. There's no money in it. There are definitely jobs in the music industry that will pay, but just what I do, I just host a lot of events and festivals for my brand. I don't know if I've been paid a single time for them, and I, haven't paid myself for them, I should say. And hopefully that doesn't scare you. We find ways to make money in other ways, and partly why I'm not making money off these is because we're paying, all these other people to help make it happen. The bands, the venue staff, renting gear, and so there are people getting paid, but just being the one organizing it, there's not that much money in it. So personally, that's the hardest part for me. But the reason we still do it is because the reward side is so strong. It's just such a great sense of satisfaction and enjoyment, just making these real connections with bands, artists of all kinds, and just I've felt few things as good as like planning a huge event, pouring my life for a few months leading up to it into every detail of it, and then it all goes well and people have a great time and the bands have a great time and the venue has a great time. It's just one of the best feelings I've ever felt. So that makes not making much money off it totally worth it.
And one of my challenges, I've had a lot of challenges at an independent record store, big one being not a large budget as well. When I started, we had a lot of money from record labels, so that's what I spent most of my time doing, was coordinating and doing media buying and promoting who was coming through town. And that money dried up, and so there was a new challenge of how do we promote ourselves. Well, social media definitely was a challenge, just learning it and using that as a resource, and it's been a great challenge because it's kept my brain going. We lived through Napster, and we lived through Spotify, and now Spotify is a friend of ours because what we find is, which leads to the rewarding part, is there are so many music fans that get these things recommended to them on Spotify, and they're discovering other artists. And if they're tuned in to Electric Fetus and our social media, they're going to see, oh, hey, there's going to be a listening party for that artist, or that artist is going to be doing a signing, or that artist signed records when they were just in town, and that's another way for some fans to connect. And that's the biggest reward, is seeing how happy everybody is when we do an event. I mean, we had 150 fans of Boy Genius come in just to hear the record before it was out. And they were sitting in the aisles and just making new friends. And it was like how it felt when I was young, going into a record store and asking people, what are you listening to, or what else should I be listening to? So that's the biggest reward. I remember we had a listening party for the last Gorillaz record, and these two fans came in, and they literally looked up at the ceiling and said, oh my gosh, it sounds so good. And I said, yeah, it's a great record. And the one said, no, it just sounds so much better than my phone. I said, well, welcome to physical goods. So it really is the reward with the community. And also, being able to connect with not only the musicians, but the photographers, the people that do the flyers for people, everybody, people that have the T-shirt ideas. We run the gamut, and we connect with all those people on a regular basis, and we're so thankful. I mean, if somebody's in need and we can help with a silent auction kind of thing, it came around to help us. I mean, our store was hit by a tornado, and the local bands came together and said, all right, what can we do for you guys? Because you can't pay for all of this. And so First Avenue, everybody came together, and we had this massive event that was to raise money for the record store. And that is because of all the years of connecting with our community. So again, I'm not in it for the money. If you are going to be in it for the money, you might need to go corporate.
You're just making it sound like I'm making the big bucks. Something that's just so great about Minneapolis, and we've been saying this, but it's just so versatile, and there's luckily so much variety. I came from a building and from a city in Iowa. You had country music and you had rock music. I like rock. I'm okay with country, but I needed some variety. So it's so nice that in this market you have Latin shows, you have hip hop shows, you have Christian shows, you have rock shows. It's Megan Thee Stallion, and then it's Peso Pluma, and then it's whoever it is. We just have such a broad spectrum of shows that come through here, which is, you're just so lucky to be in this market and a part of it. I would say that's really, really rewarding, and just seeing, I think we get used to, or at least sometimes I get used to, I'm at all of these shows. I have to work all of these shows. So I have to take a step back every once in a while and realize people that are coming through these gates, it could be their first concert. It could be their first time at Target Center. It's such a broad, spectacle of an event. And I think you forget that a lot when you work in the industry. And so just seeing people's faces, we just had a Latin show over the weekend on Saturday, Anna Gabriel. And it was as people were leaving, everybody was singing in the lobby, just singing the songs that they had just heard. So it's special things like that where it's wow, it's so cool to be a part of something that people are going to be talking about in their own lives for however long they're going to be talking about it. It's very cool. And the challenging part of that, I think, is just continuing to be creative and coming up with new ideas. If we have 5 comedy shows in a month, how am I marketing that to more than the same fan? I don't want the same fan coming to Bert Kreischer and then Theo Vaughn and then Goo Goo Gaga and all the other comedians that are coming through. So trying to think, okay, what businesses can I work with in the market that are different but still encompassing of the same demographics? So I'm just trying to stay creative in that marketing aspect, but also like the backstage artist experiences and the branding that we have on our social media. How am I continuing to like make it better every time and not just have like the same idea or you know, same thing over and over and over, same product over and over.
All right. And then we have a few specific questions. The first one, like before we get into the live Q&A portion, first one we have is for cards. How did planning large events at Target Center compare to some of the smaller shows that you might have like worked on, or like how does being at that big of a space affect your like planning experience or marketing experience?
I guess it's not that different, I guess. I mean, when I worked in North Dakota and when I worked in Iowa, a lot of the same shows, I mean, these tours obviously are like 10 to 30 dates across the nation, across the globe. So some of the shows that go to Iowa and Des Moines are the same shows we get up here. In the smaller aspect of like when I worked in North Dakota, and those were smaller shows, that was like a hairball and like a foreigner. I'm trying to think of some other small ones, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing. And I don't mean to make it like, that's not what I wanted you to say, but I'm still doing the same research of like, every fan is important, every possible person that's gonna buy a ticket's important, and how am I talking to them specifically so they don't feel like I'm like, ad, everybody's tired of seeing ads. I'm tired of seeing ads. I'm glad that, you know, I know how that looks and how it feels on TikTok and Instagram. Everything feels really fake. So just how am I talking to them so that they know I'm their friend? I'm somebody that also would want to go to the show with them. That's kind of the voice that we're portraying on our social media, posting, but also like responding to comments and responding to DMs, being like, we love her too, girl, or whatever, talking to people that are commenting to us. So I think, honestly, it doesn't matter what scale it's on, and I think that's true for the venues that I've worked at, but also like Dawn with people who are coming to listening parties, or my friend Ashley at First Avenue, who's doing shows at First Avenue. She's talking to those same consumers, those same people that are buying tickets. It's also interesting, and Dawn and I we were kind of all talking about this before too, is like the progression of artists, and now I'm kind of getting off the question, but progression of artists is really interesting in this market because you'll see somebody at Fine Line, and then you'll see somebody at First Avenue, and then you'll see them at the Armory, and then you'll see them at Target Center, and then you'll see them at US Bank Stadium. So there's a very direct like pipeline of these people in this market and who's going to the shows and what room are they seeing them in, and does that change anything? And I think based on the smaller venue to the larger venue, it doesn't have changed too much. I think a Target Center challenge is making people feel like it's still an intimate experience. Because we have a challenge from people coming from the Armory. I saw the 1975 at the Armory, and then I saw them like a year later at Target Center. Okay, and you know what? I love Target Center. I worked there, but I was like, I would have rather seen that at the Armory. And granted, it was the same show. They should, if they did something different, it would have been a different story. But trying to keep it intimate is a challenge that I think I have. Pivoting back to the challenge question.
And then for Dawn, as someone who's been in the industry for so long and been a part of the local scene at Electric Fetus for how many years did you say you were?
I was just 32 last month.
Okay, and so have you seen the local scene change, or like how have you seen that develop over the years you've been working?
Well, it's changed in how the message gets out. You know, we relied a lot on zines. music zines
is
that would get
that?
dropped off at the store.
Magazines?
Yeah, yeah, zine. Actually, zines are kind of making a comeback along with cassettes. I don't understand that, but anyway. So just word of mouth was always the biggest way. Okay, an example I give is pre-internet. I would get a phone call from somebody that I knew that worked at one of the record labels, and they were friends with one of Prince's security guards, and the word would travel late at night over the phone, hey, he might play tonight. Okay, so that's how we would get together and go out there and see if he'd play. Most of the time he didn't, but once in a while he did, right? So obviously I ended up years later helping promote those special shows when I'd get a phone call or somebody'd send a message on Twitter saying, he might play tonight, here's the artwork. I'd throw it out there and our thousands of followers would be like, oh, okay, and then they would take their shot and go. So at the core of it, a lot of it's the same. It's the communication with people. It's just how we do it now is different. It's been amazing though to see certain bands that are still, over 30 years, still playing. I mean, if you really love the local scene and you've been here for a while, then you look forward to seeing the Jayhawks every year around the holidays because they're going to be here. That kind of thing, Soul Asylum, these kind of bands that a lot of people who are older than me were excited to come to Minneapolis because they had heard those names. I was thrilled to have Greg from Husker Du in the store on Record Store Day. And what I'm finding is that these local bands are still being discovered by students. I mean, I have a kid who goes to UW-Madison, and they're really they're helping book bands at their student union. They're an art student. They're taking photos of bands. They just kind of immerse themselves that way. And I'm getting the questions now about, oh, so Husker Du's from Minneapolis? I'm like, yeah, it is. They are. And that kind of thing. And I'm just so proud of how a lot of these bands in this scene are still around. And they're still relevant, and not just to people that are old like me. So that's encouraging. But I think the base of it is the communication, just getting the word out, telling your friends, whether it's a text now or you send them the reel of somebody you really liked, and you find out they're coming to town. And again, to what Kara was saying is we really try to connect with the community by keeping things intimate, giving people a chance to come and meet this artist. Or get to listen to them and do a Q&A with them. Sometimes they're not going to play in the store because their show hasn't sold out in town. But they'll come in and they'll meet fans and they'll do signings and talk to people. And when you have that connection, you feel like you're a part of that artist. It's just like now with social media, you have that window into their part of their world, which we never had years ago. But we still like to augment that with actually meeting the artist and communicating, and sometimes you end up just discovering a whole new genre because of somebody that you're following, what they like, and so that's been an interesting thing for us to watch too. So I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of rambled there. Sorry.
It was good. It was good.
I wish I could promise that you could meet the artist. I don't get to meet the artist, so.
And then, Drew, you work a lot more with local bands or like smaller things. Do you have any advice for people who might want to start out like as a smaller artist of like how to start that process of like getting noticed by people around?
Yeah, I mean, just doing shows is the easy answer, and just anywhere you can do a show. House shows are awesome. There's a few house show venues in Como. Definitely look into those and go to those. I helped out with the Chop Shop for a while, which just closed last year. But yeah, just doing shows. If you're a musician looking to get a start, playing shows is the easiest answer. Social media, of course, is always important. Bands will get a lifelong career overnight, seemingly. But otherwise, like working in the industry, kind of like what I was saying, just showing up. I mean, I think it all comes back to just showing up, whether you're a band and you're showing up to play or you're showing up to just visit and experience. It really goes a long way. And, y'all were talking about it's kind of a small scene. And especially within like the local band circuit. You know, y'all see some crews coming in from around the country, but when it's just local bands, it's really surprising how many familiar faces you'll see around and people you'll get to know just from showing up to these different things, and that'll lead to wonderful connections, wonderful advancements in the career. But even things like photography is a great thing, where everyone seems to love it when there's a photographer at the show. And I've noticed that's also a great way to like really get connected with the band. If you shoot good photos of them, you can open that communication and be like, oh, well, I'm also open to go to a different show in the future, or follow me on Instagram or whatever. So if you're interested in photography, that's a great thing, but of course that's not necessary. I think just showing up and enjoying it, talking to people, it's the best way to kind of get into it. And the music scene here, it's pretty close, tight-knit. What's the saying? There's a lot of connections that always surprise me of just who knows who. And once you kind of just meet one person in the web, you can meet a lot more people. It opens up pretty quickly.
Yeah. So now this brings us to our Q&A portion. So if any of you, I know we had some people submit questions beforehand, but if you would like the platform to ask them now, feel free, and I'll just repeat them for our streaming audience as well. So you're going to hear an echo for a bit, but does anyone in the audience have any questions about anything?
I kind of had a question for all of you, but so I feel like we hear a lot of the time, especially as younger people trying to get into the industry in like any way, shape, or form, especially from like our parents or like concerned adults, that like it's very volatile, that it feels a lot less stable than a job in something like finance or banking or whatever else. Do you think that's true, or do you think it's just a perceived bias that the outside has of the entertainment, specifically music industry?
So the question is about the stability of careers in the music industry because of the bias, especially with older generations, of it not being something as stable as like accounting or economics. So
Who wants to do accounting? I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Drew.
No, that's true, and that's kind of what I was gonna say. Like, I mean, I think my short answer is it's got to be a little less stable than some of these other things you mentioned, but just the fulfillment you'll get. I mean, if the decisions between the art industry and finance, like, I think you should probably take the risk and go into the art industry, even at risk of a little parental disappointment. But I mean, I'm curious what y'all have to say, because I kind of made my own job here, so it's a little, it's definitely very volatile to the point of how I wake up in the morning. It's weird being an artist, but it's also kind of the best thing ever. So I'd just say, yeah, I think it is a little more volatile, but it's a big industry, so there's a lot of people that have really stable jobs within it, and it's just kind of what path you go down within the industry, it seems.
That's a great question. I was fortunate when I got the job at Electric Fetus that my parents were just happy that I was going to be happy, that I've really found something that seemed to go with my passion for music. When I was in Madison, though, and I was working at the radio station, I really, at that point, really wanted to stay on there. I loved the people I worked with. It was so exciting to me. And that's where my mom really warned me. She said the music business, or the radio business, is so finicky. Just like she warned me about if I was going to go into advertising, if I was going to go the corporate ad agency route. She said, they will chew you up and spit you out. I'm just telling you that because I've seen it. And so, you take those warnings and that advice as you do when you're 18 or 22 or 24, and you go ahead and do what you want to do anyway. When I started at the store, one of the music buyers there had already been at the store for 18 years. And the day I was introduced to him, he looked up at me and he said, "You know, you missed all the fun years, right?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Okay. And what do you say? What do you say to that? You're 24 and you're excited about this new job." And 32 years later, it's still an exciting job, and I did not miss out on all the bad things. I didn't miss out on all the good things. It wasn't all bad. So that can be really tough because everybody has such a different relationship with their parents, their mentors, and that kind of thing. So what I would say is if you're really interested in it, keep pursuing the passion. It might not be full-time right away or never. A quick example, if I can throw this in, I mentioned that I have a kid who's a senior at Madison, and they're studying art education, and so they want to teach art. Well, they're also doing all these music things and hanging out with all these bands, and so I asked them, I said, "So are you kind of thinking about a different path?" And they said, "Oh no, Mom, most of the people in the Midwest emo scene down here, they're all teachers." So you can if you can get past the eye raise of the parents wondering if that's going to be stable, do it. Being happy is the most important thing, and that's one thing that I know as somebody that's been around for a long time now. But I also understand the parent side of it, where how are you going to have insurance, that kind of thing. So if you can keep yourself into the music somehow, you never know, you might end up doing this full time for 30 some years, or it could just be a part-time hobby, and that's fulfilling to you as well too. So appreciate the concern, but don't let it stop you from what you really want to do.
I agree with both of them. I think the eye raising can be frustrating and annoying. I also think it's a general lack of understanding. I think it's easy to say, oh, the music industry is drugs or anything crazy, or I'm just going to concerts for my job. I get that a lot. People are like, "So you just go to concerts then?" I'm like, no, but I do, but I work them. So I think it's a lack of understanding. Like, who do you think books the shows? Who do you think routes the tour? Who do you think markets it? Who do you think plans it and produces it? There's so much behind the scenes that I think people just don't know exists. I think a lot of people just think concerts just happen somehow. I know I thought that before I got into the industry. I'm like, there's people that put the speakers on the thing and they go up. I don't know what the thing is, but they go up and they do the thing, So I think it's a lack of understanding. I had so much else I was going to say. Oh, I think it's hard to say too, because obviously there was a global pandemic, so a lot of concerts and things just stopped happening. So I think that's a really good example of you have a job one day and then you don't have a job the next day, which is very real. So it is a risk. I say this a lot actually, day to day. I'm like, on a bad day at my job, thank God I'm not a teacher. Thank God I'm not in some suit in IDS Center chipping away on my laptop. I will take a horrible day at my job over any of that. So that is the most important to me. I love my job, and again, on a bad day, at least I'm not a teacher. At least a kid's not puking in my classroom today.
All right, and I'd also you will be next, but I'd also like to introduce, if anyone who is joining us via YouTube would like to ask a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and we will have people who will be able to let us know if any questions are asked there. But without further ado, feel free.
So I'm just wondering, if we don't always have the opportunity to maybe get on the scene, what do you think is the best place to kind of search for these jobs?
So without the opportunity to get into the scene too much, what is an alternative way to still be able to get into the industry and look for careers like that?
Well, one thing that I recommend is if you want to look online. I did talk before we had this panel. I did talk to one of my friends who used to coordinate the for Warner Music Group. They were coordinating the college rep staff, and that program is stopping. it's something that they can't do anymore. But they are going to be starting a new intern program. So I think with if you find a band you like, look at what who their record label is, and look at who distributes that record label. You can find that stuff out so easily, and then go to those sites, because if you look on the career links on some of those, you know, it's not like there's going to be 5 options for Minneapolis. There might not be any, but it will give you an idea of what's out there and what might be out there through another company. And bigger isn't always better. Sometimes it is. It'll teach you things that you love and things that you don't want to do again. But even just looking online, you know, if you can't get out to the scene that much, but, you know, the next time there's a concert here, go.
I think it's so nice that everything's at our fingertips these days. So again, like, if you have a venue that you really like, going to their website, and maybe they don't have any open positions, but if there's an email listed anywhere, even if it's info@targetcenter.com, emailing that and just saying, hey, this is my name and this is what I'm interested in. Anything is, I think just going that extra mile goes a long way. Not only doing the websites, and maybe you don't have a specific venue in mind, but if you're on LinkedIn and you see somebody that works for Target Center or works for the Wolves or works for Electric Fetus, anything like that, messaging them. I get messages here and there, so just, hey, I'm interested in marketing, would you be interested in a call, or whatever it might be. It's so nice to have all of that so easily accessible, and I do think even just sending that email is a lot more than a lot of people will do.
Yeah, that goes back to where we started with just asking. I mean, makes a huge difference, which is a slight tangent, but when I first started my clothing brand, for like 2 years, I just had this like idea in my mind where if anyone asked me for a free shirt, I would give it to them. But just nobody asked. I think I had 2 people throughout that whole time just ask me for a free shirt. And so I just thought it was funny. I just wanted to reward people for like just asking, because just kind of reiterating what they were saying is, yeah, you find a local band, like, you don't necessarily have to go to the show, but if there's something you're interested in doing for them, just send them a message and say, hey, I could design your merch or shoot photos or run your social media, whatever it is.
Or run your merch table.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. I'm glad you said that, because I make a lot of merch for local bands, so it's pretty important to have someone running your merch table. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can help out without buying tickets and going to shows.
Go ahead.
So what is a skill set that you maybe not expected to develop but is really valuable in the industry?
So a valuable but unexpected skill set that you gained through your job.
A lot of juggling. That was the thing for me. And my job has changed a lot over those 30-some years. It's never been boring. It's changed. And I have, besides learning new things, I just really had no idea that what I had in me as far as handling all these different things at once and juggling a lot of, not just events, but, you know, while you're getting ready to execute events, you're planning the next 4. Or you're figuring out how to let somebody down gently because we just can't do an event with them. Or waiting or hoping that the next person that you've booked isn't somebody that's going to get canceled. That's been a recent thing, you know. So I mean, that's all out there.
Physically and spiritually.
Yeah, exactly.
The show's canceled.
Yeah, so that's just something that I didn't start out thinking that I was going to learn how to do, and I do it pretty well, but boy, there's always room to learn.
Yeah, kind of another way of putting that same idea, but in my perspective, is just being like a jack of all trades. Really, especially just kind of these DIY events that I'm hosting. Yeah, I kind of thought it'd be a little more straightforward, I guess, when I got into it. Like, oh yeah, the shows just happen, you know, like you were saying. But turns out to run a show, there's just all these different elements that have to go into it, all across the spectrum of understanding like the audio equipment and how that works, to understanding marketing and how to get people to go to the shows, and social skills to build a network and meet new people. And it's a lot less, at least from my position, it's a lot less focused than I thought. I'm kind of all over the place doing tons of different things that seemingly can be pretty unrelated and unconnected, but somehow they are.
I would say both of those, but I also think just like a funny, quirky one is like the power of the creep, like creeping on artists and stuff. Just because I need to know, first of all, if I don't know an artist, I've got a lot of work to do. I mean, it's really great when I'm like, oh yes, I love Doja Cat. I can't wait to market her. It's gonna be so easy for me. It's like, I was just telling them before this, I think last year we had Zach Bryan. When my boss came to me and was like, how do you think Zach Bryan's gonna sell? And I was like, I don't know what that is. So bad, I guess? I don't know, you know? So it's like, okay, so I need to creep on Zach Bryan. I need to creep on his followers. Who's following him? What do they like to do? What's in their bio? You know, what age group is it? A lot of creeping. And then it's like, that's on the front end, but on the back end, when I'm working on an artist gift or like a welcome for their crew backstage, like what's their tour name? What are other buildings getting that person, the artist, or what are they activating backstage that we can just like absorb that information but make it our own. So it's a lot of creeping, not only on the artists, not only on the fans, but other venues. Yeah, fun random one.
This can go for anybody, but as we like get more into the digital age, how has user experience played into your guys' jobs?
So how user experience has changed as the world gets more digital.
Well, there's obviously a lot more of the online stuff going on. I kind of got my start in the music industry by filming and publishing live set recordings, similar to what Radio K does. And that was great because we could do it. We were doing it 2021, you know, COVID's still going on, and it's just the band and a very small crew, we could make it happen, but still get these performances out to hundreds or thousands of people. So I think it's opened up a lot more opportunities, for sure, a lot more channels to talk to people, which is great. Surely there's been some things that have been lost, but it's kind of all I know. So I love it, and I think it just kind of opens the doors for a lot more possibilities to connect with people, and even just letting bands connect with their fans beyond the music, just in a much more casual sense. I think that's really interesting and kind of makes them more as human beings instead of just artists, with a little bit of both.
I was gonna say, Dawn, you wanna go? I think it feels like, or at least on my social media, it feels like everybody's trying to sell you something, or everybody's trying to make you do something, or yeah, again, go to my Linktree or go to my Goo Goo Gaga, whatever it is. So when we're communicating and we're trying to talk, luckily we have young people behind the phone, so we're like, we know how to communicate with the audience or our followers, but it's being quick and to the point, I think too, which is a big thing, that attention span is a lot shorter. So when we're thinking about if we're doing a giveaway video or we're doing a fun announce or an on sale video, it's like quick and to the point. You really only need to see like a second of it to know what it is or what's going on. And we just try to, I think, cut to the chase, not only in the creative, but in the copy of things. And just continuing to be authentic and not say, buy tickets now kind of thing, if that makes sense. And more just like making it more authentic, more conversational. I only know the digital age, so.
See, and I went into it kicking and screaming, so I don't know whether I can add a lot to that. But you know, we are who we are. We try lots of different things. It's been an amazing way to get the word out to people. We do love that. We love, like I said before, we love how people's playlists are generated and turn them on to other artists, and then they come in and learn more about them sometimes through us, or decide, hey, you know what, that I really like that a lot. I think I want to have that on vinyl, that kind of thing, and that's what we're there for. One of the things that I've noticed that's not necessarily a positive thing, but it's been interesting, is because there's so many more artists now that make it big because of YouTube and TikTok, they haven't come up through the club scene. and it's really hard for them to carry a show. One example was my husband took our youngest to go see Joji at the Armory. And I said, how was the show? And my husband, who also works at the store, he's the music buyer, he said, well, it was okay, but you could tell this guy hadn't come up through the clubs, just had that instant fame to sell out that 8,000 person room, because in the middle of it, he brought out a t-shirt cannon. And I'm like, what? He said they just not used to playing to a crowd. So they just had to do something jazzy and, kind of out of the ordinary. And no disrespect to t-shirt cannons, because they're great at
Free
basketball
t-shirt.
games. But
Well, that's so funny that you say that because we had Joji after the Armory. And it struggled. It struggled. And it's so funny because people were like, well, the last show at the Armory was a little bit weird. And I was like, weird like how? So that's funny. I was going to say something else too. Oh, I would say as far as also user-friendly, like quickness, and it kind of ties into the attention span, but it's knowing where we're sending people and being conscious of like, is this going on? It's so funny that this is my job. Is this going on the story or is this going on a post? Is it going to be a reel? Is it going to be static? So being like, okay, if we have 2 shows announcing on the same day, maybe like an hour apart, and then we have a show going on sale later that day, okay, well, if we post 3 times, one of them's going to get lost, only one of them's going to get shown. So being conscious, okay, we're going to post a on sale now graphic and carousel things. Or Hot Wheels Monster Trucks Live has their 8th discount deal going out this same month. Okay, I'm skipping it on social media, or I'm doing a story post direct to the ticket link instead of sending people to our website. Like, it's just a lot of weird, like, how to be the easiest, most user-friendly, not waste anybody's time. Because I know, too, in my life, if I get sent to the website and I want to actually go to Ticketmaster.com, I'm like, goodbye. Now I'm going to go to that later, and maybe I won't go to it later, So just being conscious of that.
So I want to go into like concert photography, and I've like tried emailing venues before, but usually it would be like with a company or something. So like any suggestions on how to get started on that?
So concert photography without a company behind you when you're reaching out.
Yeah, well, I guess one answer is you could try and find some company or some organization, but I don't really like that answer. So I would say like smaller venues or like bands, like offering free shoots even outside of the concert space, because a lot of the times bands seem to be able to get in photographers. Like they can almost act as that company. So if you can build relationships with bands, they can often put you on the guest list or give you a photo pass, and get you into some more real venues. But otherwise, the house show venues, are great. It's not the prettiest environment, a lot of sweaty, usually drunk people, but I've seen so many photographers get their start just going to random house shows and shooting photos and giving them to the bands, and then kind of get momentum there, and the bands want more photos, but now they're playing at 7th Street Entry or something, and just kind of gets your start that way. But really just having cool photos also helps, so practicing your art always helps you with a career in art.
I think that's a good point because at Target Center, we don't accept requests that are not with a publication. So I don't know if that's the same with smaller venues. I would say start smaller and build up a portfolio. But I also think if you do reach out to my emails on Target Center's website as a request, so if you were to email me and ask, I'd say, hey, sorry, we don't allow anybody that's not shooting for a publication, but we do have a house photographer that, you can reach out to other photographers that have shot shows and ask if you want to get coffee with them, or like we have our house photographer, but the Star Tribune always sends a photographer and those people rotate. Every publication does, so reaching out to those publications and just asking like, who are your photographers and is there any way I can meet up with them and just discuss how they got into what they're doing. I would say that's where to start because we won't accept anybody that's not with a publication, so it's a good question.
as far as at the record store, if you see that there's an artist that's that's going to come, and we don't really have too much going on right now, but if you do see that, we have on our website, there's an email address that's just info@electricfetus.com, and there's 5 or 6 of us that see every one of those emails. They go to the right person, and we get back to as many people as we can. And a simple, hey, you have this event, would it be okay if I took pictures? Again, that's not a paying gig, but if you're starting out and you would like to be able to say that, I had permission to shoot so-and-so at this record store, that's something that you can take with you. And so what we do then is we find out if it's okay, and it usually is. So it's a small little thing, but it's something that might work for you.
I was just going to say that's huge, because I think a hard part about Target Center is we have our camera policy. When people are coming in with their phones phone is fine, but we won't allow like anybody to bring in a camera. So if it's like, oh, can I shoot photos at Electric Fetus, a band's coming, that's so much less of like sorry, here are our policies, I can't let you bring in this camera or this detachable lens, like it's a security thing. It's a lot less of a hassle.
Yeah, I think I say house shows just because like nobody's gonna care at all, so that's helpful. But a better way to put it might be just kind of like smaller local shows. The rules are often a lot more relaxed than with national acts or people on tour or these larger venues. You can often get in a little easier that way. But yeah, having a good portfolio is good. And also just asking people, you should send me a message at Flavor World. I'd love to see your work. Goes for anyone. We're always doing shows and stuff. So yeah, just asking a bunch of bands, bunch of venues. It'll do good things.
You guys talked a lot about being a jack of all trades. So when we're like starting in the industry, do you think it's important to apply for like array of jobs, like going for runners, security, and ticketing, or do you think it's important for your resume to go into what you're specifically going for and sticking to a niche?
So it's going either reaching broadly out and kind of casting a wide net for jobs to just get into the industry, or if it would be better for a resume to go towards jobs you would look towards in the future.
I think if you have a thought or know what you want to get into, I think it's an asset to start in that. But in the same tune, if there's maybe not positions open for that, or maybe you don't know, or you're going to change your mind, I think any job in the industry is a great way to start in the industry. There's not a right or wrong answer. If you start as a runner, a lot of those people end up working for promoters. But those runners are also in venues and meet venue people. There's just such a wide array of of industry jobs, so I just don't think you necessarily need to pigeonhole yourself either. I hope that's a good answer.
Yeah, and the way I came into it, again, was not planned. I, have an advertising focus and wanted to do something that way. And that, I ended up starting at this optical company, not even being an advertising person, doing their customer service. And then, got a promotion into that position because that's what I was interested in. I always felt like seeing my position in the paper was a fluke. And again, had I known that job was out there, I probably would have done too many things and tried too hard to get it. So some of it does feel like it's kind of definitely luck-based, right place at the right time. What's nice now is there's so many more ways to network and just, talk to people and use your resources. Just think of the people around you, the things that you're learning in school, anybody that you're talking to about this afterwards. You just never know what's going to lead you to the next step. And so, I don't think there's anything wrong with, it's just like when you graduate, most people will apply for 20, 30, 40 jobs. Sometimes you're lucky to hear back from 1 or 2, and that's the way it's been for a long time. So I don't think you have to worry about pigeonholing yourself. I think just get out there and just see what happens and see what your path is.
I also think it's the prime time to, just do anything. I I wouldn't say it's ever too late to change your career. If I wanted to stop being in marketing, it sounds scary, but I could do it. But I think now, especially being in college, you know, having started in country clubs and then happening to get a marketing job and then being an executive assistant, it's just the time to do that, I think, too.
Yeah, I don't have too much else to add. I think if you know exactly what it is you want to do, well, first off, that's kind of surprising, but apply to a bunch of positions like that, and then, yeah, but any job in the industry is going to be better than no job in the industry if you know you want to go into that industry. So take what you can get, and you might discover something new through the process. I mean, a lot of people have had surprise career changes just because they didn't really know that this other path existed until they were at least in the industry, maybe doing one of these low-level jobs, and then they're like, oh, that person doing that job is pretty cool. That's actually what I want to do. So yeah, just really trying to get in however possible is better than nothing at all. But of course, if you can start with your dream job, you should probably do that.
At this point in your careers, what would you say success or growth looks like to you guys?
So what would growth or success look like at this point in your career?
I mean, easy answer is people coming to the shows I host. That's pretty important. And really, you know, if I host a show and nobody comes, it's kind of a bummer for everybody involved. But if a bunch of people come, then, you know, people will be talking about it for a long time, and I'll remember it forever. So that's the easiest answer, is really just how many people you can get to come out and how many people you can impact and inspire by what it is that I'm doing.
For me, at this point in my career, and I always joke that's how I'm gonna end my career someday, is doing this hopefully, is the personal growth. It's just how I feel. I feel very good about what I do. I don't feel like it's a slimy job. I get so much from the community around us, and I've been able to, raise a family and still enjoy what I'm doing. So for me, that's definitely what I look as the most important part to me for my personal growth. For the store itself, it's just the fact that we're still around. I mean, the store is 56 years old.
Iconic.
Yeah. But, being the oldest doesn't mean you're the best. We're constantly keeping, looking at what everybody else is doing and trading ideas with our friends at other record stores and record labels, and just trying to stay relevant in this world. And, the things that I've seen us get through, a tornado, a flood, COVID, streaming, that's just a start. I'm really proud of being a part of that organization, and it just makes me happy that I was asked to be here today. Is a really good example. So,
For me, I feel successful when people don't question me, and I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I'm a particularly anxious, perfectionist person. So if people are questioning me, I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this better. They might not always be right, but it's just something that I think about. And my boss is really great when she doesn't question me. She trusts me to market the shows. She trusts me to put them on sale. She doesn't ask me, oh, I'm just making sure you have the social post ready for tomorrow to promote the show the show being announced. She just lets me do it. So I feel successful because nobody's checking in on me. Personal growth-wise, I think jobs are scary, and I'm typically, I would say when I start a job, I'm scared almost every day in the way that I don't know what's coming. And even as months go on, I'm like, okay, I'm still nervous. I think that that's a good thing. I've realized that that's a good thing. So in my job currently, I really like my job, but I don't feel nervous anymore. So then I need to figure out a way how do I start to feel nervous again, as in that is what's challenging me. So I think about, okay, what things that what things are my boss doing that I can start taking off of her plate? And maybe she does the booking for the building. Maybe I don't want to get into booking, but it's still telling her she wants to know, I want to know more. I want to know more about the industry. I want to know more about touring. You know, just finding new ways to continuously be challenged is a huge thing, I think, for me.
I don't understand, like, how does one, like, join a band, and, like, is there, like, a band Craigslist that you go on or something? Or, like, when you're in a band, like, who's writing the songs? Like, what if you write the songs for a band, but you want it to be, like, your own song, and, like, how you decide that? Like, the whole thing is just really confusing to me. Can you go more into detail on this?
So it's like
Take that, Drew.
band, how to be in a band and how bands work, basically, like in a very broad sense.
Yes. So I am not in a band, but I've been around a lot of bands, and I've seen a lot of bands form. Funny enough, not Craigslist, but Facebook. I've got a couple friends' bands that they found each other just on the university like Facebook page, class of whatever. Hey, anyone looking for a guitarist? Usually things start pretty casual, just people want to jam, and then you're just jamming with some friends, and you're like, oh, well, this sounds pretty cool. What could we call ourselves, you know? It seems like a lot of times it's almost like a joke in a way. Not a joke, but just kind of like, oh, like, what if we actually did this? More so than like a very like premeditated, like, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this. Feels more organic. But I feel like jams are a big one because so Flavor World, we host a third Wednesday of every month. We host an open jam at the Green Room, and it's definitely like a big sense of pride for me. And going back to the previous question with like how we measure success, I always think of this story because it's just an open jam to anyone. And this guy, he moved here, I forget where, but out of state. He moved to Twin Cities, heard about the Flavor World jams. He's like, okay, I'll go check them out. He had a good time, jammed on stage with some people he had never met before. And through that and through meeting those people, the band, they needed a guitarist. So they're like, oh, hey, you were awesome to jam with. Like, you want to come play with us? And now they're in a band, and they're doing shows all around. And, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. There's not really a super, like, singular answer. There's not like just a easy, clear path to say, but it just seems like a lot of it's just community, friends, having fun, just playing your instrument and putting yourself out there. You know, like post on the Facebook page and just say like, hey, anyone looking for you know, whatever instrument it is you play or what you can do. And kind of going back to the whole music industry thing, like once you're in, it gets easier, you know. If you meet enough bands or enough people, it'll be easier to bounce around and find new people to jam with or switch bands. Or, you know, there are drummers in the scene that are in like 10 bands. It's crazy. So kind of once you're in and you know, meet people and they see you play, it gets a little easier to kind of build the network. But getting in the first place, yeah, it seems pretty organic. Just play with some friends. Don't take it too serious, you know. Find a house show venue, or Pillar Forum is another great new venue that they take a lot of bands for like their first show ever, just to give them a chance, and it's awesome. So just find any way to make music, and it'll seemingly work itself out. I don't know. That's what seems to happen for everybody else. So.
As like a feminine presenting or like a woman in the industry, how do you learn how to like be confident in what you do, especially with so many like specifically like we're getting ticketing, like male customers yelling and just arguing with you. How do you walk that line of being kind but also assertive without pushing that bound of being mean? And like how do you guys work up to that?
So the essence of the question is about being a femme-presenting person in the music industry and dealing with everything that comes with that, with like, the example was men yelling at you, but like things like that.
Well, and I've had one point had a part-time job while I had this job with one of the local ticketing companies. And fortunately, I didn't have too many problems, but actually I had attitude and was yelled at more by some women or female presenting. So one of the things that somebody taught me early on was just keep smiling. Just, you just kind of, so, okay, so now you're angry about this. I didn't sell you this ticket. This is the one you bought, and this is where your seat is. And, you just have to do your best to talk through it with them. I've had customers on the phone at the record store that have just become belligerent over the phone for their, a problem with their web order or a phone order that they did. And, it's, even when it's not our store's fault, we just, we have to just talk through it with them. Some people you're just not going to make happy. Fortunately, I haven't been in any situations where I felt dangerous or threatened at all. But I'm not sure, you might do you have something to add to that?
I don't have a specific instance, luckily, but I think just as feminine presenting or as a woman, I don't want to say unfortunately, but you have to just know a lot of things. You have to know what you're talking about. I think that having that knowledge is very powerful, and just being confident in what I'm talking about. I feel that I can speak confidently because I have the knowledge, if that makes sense. So it's easy in that way where I'm like, okay, I know, again, I'm not being questioned. I'm not questioning myself. I know about different bands, or I know all this stuff in my position, so I can speak confidently about it. I have been yelled at a ticketing window. Thank God they're behind glass. No, I'd never felt in danger either, but I think the situation, when the situation varies, the outcome is different. So if I have somebody that has a bad ticket, or like there's some way that I can actually help them, I try to calm them down, but it's like, I'm trying to help you. So let's just get through this together. I'm gonna do what I can to help you. If it's a policy thing, part of me is kind of like, you're an idiot. But it's more like, that's the policy, I'm afraid. Luckily, nobody's said, well, you're an idiot because you're a woman. Thank God nobody's said that. I would say, I'm gonna stop helping you, truly, Yeah, I've luckily never had that, but it's more, if it's policy, I just keep saying that, then they argue on that side of the glass, and then they come back to me, and a lot of times people will say, can I talk to your manager? It's so funny because the manager is like one of my friends. His name's Philip. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go get Philip. Philip's like, that's the policy. So it kind of just depends on the situation too, but having that knowledge is so much helpful in being confident in what I'm talking about.
Right. So we'll do one last call for. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question for Dawn. I love Electric Theater so much, and we've been there like for quite a while. And I wanted to ask, like, as someone working in advertising, how has your approach to advertising changed with how we sell music changes? Because like, you said you've been there, if I'm not doing the math wrong, 92.
Yeah.
So we've seen it go from cassette to CD to like digital buying to digital streaming. Like you've seen some wonderful and sometimes very crazy changes within this industry. So how has your approach to advertising changed with like how we sell music?
So how has your approach to advertising changed with how we sell music? And it is a Dawn specific question.
Thank you. So yeah, it's really been interesting to watch through those decades. I've really, with the marketing and our plan to keep the word out there about us and tell people what's going on, what's coming up, what to look for. I've just followed the same rule that we've had with our customers, where we decide, we go along with what our customers want. So we're watching, okay, when I started, there was a lot of print advertising, and that's where people were getting that's where you found out who was going to be playing at First Avenue, and we did tons of ads, and that's when I spent all my time with all that money. So when that money started to dry up, then it was like, well, okay, so what's next? Now everybody is, they're downloading stuff. They don't necessarily care about a CD anymore. So then when the marketing money went away, for a while, it was really, really tough. I mean, we had some really tough lean times there where it was like, I hope that we can get through this. We did. And then, you just kind of wait it out and see what the next thing come in. Oh, okay, so I'm really not really interested in this Facebook thing, but I guess if I want to keep my job, I'm going to learn it. And so then you kind of go from there. So it's really not cut and dry. There's no book. You just have to, I think with a lot of jobs, you just have to be open to change. And that can get really hard as you get older. But it also is what keeps my job exciting is, I'm not going to, on my own time, I'm not going to be flipping, I'm not going to kill 3 hours on TikTok, but I know that it is relevant.
Okay, Dawn, okay.
Just 2. But that's just me. And I know that, these things are relevant. And so I ask, and I'm not afraid to ask people as well. For years, I've used my kids as a resource for not just not marketing things, but what's of interest to people. Are these, do you know this artist, or what can you tell me about this artist? With somebody your age, what do you think about that? How would anybody find out? That kind of thing. So again, it's just been part of my learning curve. And you should just not be afraid. That's the big thing. It can be very intimidating. And, like I said, just go with your resources if you've got people that you can turn to. And with us, it's really just watching what our customers are doing, kind of what Kara was saying about when you get on someone's Instagram and you just start creeping around and seeing what are they interested in. I hope I answered your question.
All right, so that is all we have time for tonight, but thank you guys so much for coming out, and thank you folks for coming in at such an odd time on a Monday to come and chat with us for a bit, and other than that, have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.